Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the patch 9.10 patch notes in depth. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It just takes a couple of clicks. It's free. It's easy. Helps out a ton with visibility on the channel. And check out my tier list that I'm going to release this patch as well. We're going to have support, AD carry, jungle, and I might sneak in a mid-tier list as well. So be sure to check that out. We stream most nights starting around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'd love to have you. It's a wonderful, very chill community on YouTube streaming. So yeah, we'd love to have you come out. Come by, check it out. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. Okay, so Yuumi is getting released on this patch. I will say I've had a ton of requests for me to, do a guide on Yuumi and comment on Yuumi and play Yuumi. The issue is everyone is going to pick and ban this champion in the first week. Everybody. And that's how it is with every new champion release. Now, she is only played in one role as support, most likely. I mean, I guess you could try her in other roles, but she's probably going to be support. So that does make her slightly more likely that I could pick her because not every single position is going to be playing her, unlike kind of the Kale rework where people were trying her in all of the lanes. But nevertheless, I highly expect that she's going to be picked or banned in pretty much every single game. But I will try to play her if she's not picked or banned in every game. So as soon as I get some more information on her, I'll do a more in-depth sort of guide about her. But I will give you some really quick initial thoughts here because I know everybody wants to know this. But this would just be like maybe 5 or 10 minutes on Yuumi, and then once I actually get to play her, once I get to play against her, in ranked, in a real setting that's not an all caps video, like all the stuff that you see out there, then I can give you a more realistic assessment. But right now, I'll just go ahead and tell you, I think she's going to come out the gate pretty weak. She does have some pretty cool interactions. I mean, the most notable one is that she can be supremely safe if you're attached to an AD carry that's not a fool, that is not going to get caught out and die all the time. It's a big if in solo queue. She can go untargetable, so that is helpful. They have her as 3 on the difficulty meter. I don't know about all that. But there's a couple of things about Yuumi that I think will make her a bit rough early on. Number one, she has extremely low base stats. So she has 432 base health. Like, Janna has like 480 or something. So that is really, really low base health. Her armor is 25, which is pretty low. Magic resist, really low. Move speed, pretty low. Okay, so she's going to be on the weak side in that sense. All right, in terms of the... So if someone gets her, she's probably going to die if, her reattachment's on cooldown or if she gets chain CC'd. Now, her passive is interesting. It's every 20 to 8 based on level. So during the laning phase, it's going to be 20 to like 17 seconds. So that means about every wave or so, you're going to get to pop off, do this bop and block, and then jump back on them. And I think that's going to be most of her trading pattern is like once per wave, you're going to be attached to somebody most of the time. And then you're going to detach and try to get an auto attack in there, and then once you get that auto attack, then you're going to reattach to give that person the shield. Now, it's worth noting that while you're attached, then you give the shield to your AD carry. So if they run something like shield bash, so if it's coordinated teams, I think maybe she'll be a little bit better. But if your AD carry takes something like shield bash, this could be really good. Not a lot of AD carries are going to go into the resolve tree, though. I mean, you yourself can take shield bash also if you want to. You land this auto attack and you try to do something else. Maybe that can work. It does help you restore mana as well, so that you can keep spamming your Q. And I think that's how she's going to try to trade in lane, by the way. She's just going to sit on somebody and then try to spam these Qs, right, over and over again. And if you get proficient at this, it's going to be kind of tough for the enemy to dodge, but part of this also is your AD carry has to actually help you out. Like, they have to stand up a little bit more so that you can land these Qs. If there's always hiding out really far behind the minion wave, you may not be in range of this prowling projectile. Now, I'm not sure how far this moves. It looks like it moves pretty far, probably like within 900 range or so. It depends on, how much you have to zig and zag around the minions as well. But this can do some decent poke damage. Now, early on, it's not great. You're paying 60 mana to do 60 damage early on, so that's not fantastic. It's only got a 0.6 ratio on it. But, around level 5, doing 140 for the cost of 70 mana is okay. If you're getting all of your mana refilled over and over again with this, and you're getting that extra shield, that can be good. But there are ways the enemy can play around this. So, yeah, it's kind of homing missile-esque. But, you can dodge in the minion wave. and get this to work a lot of the time. Now, if you do hit somebody with this, they're going to be slowed by a lot, and I don't believe it's a decay. It does actually decay, so we don't know. I really hate this word decay. I'm going to talk about that later with Soraka because it's not a technical term. We don't know exactly how fast this slow decays, because with Soraka, it says that her Q, the speed was going to decay over 5 seconds. Well, it ends up that 90% of it decayed within 1 second or less, maybe half a second. So I don't know if that's true with this or not, how long they're going to stay slowed. From the videos that I saw, it looked like they stayed slowed for quite a bit, so that could be useful to set up other CC chains out there. So if you slow them with this Q, that could allow, you know, the Varus to hit them with an arrow, that could allow Jinx to hit them with Zap. You know, there are a lot of different setups. Could allow Jhin to hit them with his W. So there can be some pretty decent setups, but I think there's going to be quite a bit of counterplay to this. This is what you will max first. It's okay. It's one of her better abilities. When you're attached to somebody, you can just keep firing this, so that's helpful. Okay, so it sticks around for 3 seconds, so it depends on how far you have to zig and zag for this. And trying to cast this when you're not attached to somebody seems really bad. It just goes in a straight line, and it's super slow, and it does less damage. Most of the time, so it's not that great if you're not attached. Okay, this seems like it's really cool. I do like that they changed this. It used to be 10 seconds at all ranks. Now they've changed the cooldown to 5 seconds at rank 6, which is pretty nice. And this is what gives a lot of the power to the person that you're attached to, because it transfers some of your bonus like AP over to them and some of their bonus AP and AD over to you. So that's really useful. So on champions that are going to get a lot of flat AD, this is going to be, you know, really beneficial to you. So things like Jhin, I know that like Bunny Fufu has a Veigar, you know, video about that. So you can get some pretty good benefits out of this. The problem is this is most likely the last thing you're going to want to level because there aren't that many benefits out of it. Like the cooldown is based on your level, not how many points you put into this skill. And all that you're getting is this bonus. Versus this, you're getting, you know, lower cooldown on the ability and a lot more damage. And this, you're getting a much needed desperate heal buff here because this is a super weak spell anyways. And then you're getting a lower cooldown on it. So I think you'll max Yuumi second. I guess it's possible you could max you and me, and then you're going to have a really, really anemic heal if you do that. But either way, it's all right. Now, how this actually works, I believe, is whenever you attach to somebody, the cooldown starts. So you attach to somebody, if you wait 10 seconds, then you can jump off of them and then immediately reattach. So you can jump off, do your bop and block, land your auto attack, and then immediately attach right back up to give them the shield. I thought it was when you detach, then you had to wait 10 seconds before you can reattach. That's not the case. The reattachment starts ticking while you're still attached. So that does make this way, way better than I initially thought it was. But it's still not going to be that amazing. It's like, yeah, you can jump off, do your bop and block, and then become untargetable. But they're just going to focus all of the damage on your AD carry. And that's a huge problem with Yuumi is like, your AD carry is going to 1v2 this lane most of the time. Because when you're attached, you know, chucking these Qs, that's cool and everything, but you're not applying any threat or presence, really. Like, what are you going to do? Jump off of them and bop and block? Like, it's going to be so hard to get like realistic presence in this lane off of Yuumi because you're not really a threat for an all-in like ever, you know? And so they're just going to get to go up and just use all of their spells on your AD carry and just beat them down. And you're not going to be able to sustain through it because Yuumi's is a really weak heal. This bop and block's only available, you know, every 17 to 20 seconds early on. So I'm just afraid that her trading is not going to be that strong. And so, yes, this sounds cool that you can go untargetable, give these like minor buffs early on to people. And that's good for you for surviving, but it's going to put a lot of pressure on your AD carry to perform really well early. And then we have Yuumi's, which is really, really anemic. Really anemic. I mean, maybe if you got both charges back every 14 seconds, maybe. But you only get one charge. Every 14 seconds at max rank. Early on, this is a 36-second cooldown. 36 seconds before you get both charges back. And it costs 100 mana for this heal. And the minimum heal early on is 100. That's the maximum heal is 100 with a 0.4 ratio. Are you kidding me? Now, each charge can do that, so you can get up to 100 for 2 charges with a 0.8. That's ridiculous. Like, that is a ridiculously anemic heal. I mean, if you look at something, even like Lulu or Janna, you know, their shield is going to be 210, and Lulu's is going to be on a 10-second cooldown. And this, you know, if you use both charges, it's going to be 260 with a 0.8 ratio. So it does have a nice little burst to it if you use both. But it's still going to be a 28-second cooldown before you get both those charges back. So the cooldown is just huge. I wish they would do something like every time you land an auto attack, it would lower the cooldown of this by 1 second. So you'd actually have a reason to jump off with Bop and Block, start landing some autos as much as you can, and it would lower the cooldown. Maybe if you hit people with your Q or something, it would lower the cooldown. Just something you could do that's active that lowers the cooldown. I know they don't want her to be a very good sort of passive healer and shielder because that's dangerous because she already is really safe because she can just sit on people. So I understand that they don't want to, they deliberately do not want to give her a lot of healing, but it just looks super anemic. I wish they would find some way to lower this cooldown. Like I said, preferably by doing something active, hopping off. Because I think that is a really interesting part of her kit, right? Where you have to make this decision. Do I want to jump off and get this extra shield and mana? Do I want to lower the cooldown on my E? Maybe Q could do something. Maybe if you're not attached, it actually does more damage. If you land this because it's so slow and difficult to land to begin with. Maybe it has wave clear potential. I don't know. But I think that would be really cool if they kind of doubled down on this Bop and Block idea, which is you have to get off of the person, choose like very carefully when you want to get off and do some kind of rotation of skills and then jump back on them when it's safe. So you have this constant sort of cat and mouse, right? Pun intended, I guess, where you jump off, you know, do your stuff, and then they're about to try to trade back onto you, and then you jump back on. You fizzle a couple of their abilities or something like that because you go untargetable. Then you jump back off and mess with them a little more, then you jump back on. Like, I think that could be really cool. But, yeah, overall, I don't think... It just feels like a really low number to me. Or this thing needs to be a bigger heal. Like, if it's going to be that long, if it's going to take you 28 seconds to get double action out of it, it needs to be a very, very significant burst heals. This number needs to go up to at least like 160. Then that'd give like a 320 total heal with a 0.8. That would be pretty significant, even if it's on a long cooldown. But yeah, as it stands, it looks like it's going to be pretty anemic. And it's 100 mana per charge as well. So that's 200 mana to use all of this. To get the 260 heal, it's 200 mana. So she's going to go really quickly. Final chapter is pretty good. You have to hit them with 3 waves. So that means that they have to almost stand still for a second and a half. They have to have no flash, no mobility, no nothing. And you're attached to somebody probably when you're using this. So you're kind of like at their mercy. If they just don't position correctly, then you may not get the stun. So it does look powerful. It does some nice damage overall. 204 with a 0.68, but you have to hit every single wave for 3.5 seconds. They have to like not move or not dodge any of it. And unlike a Sona ult, because I hear this get compared to Sona ult a lot, because it does kind of have a similar hitbox. I think it's actually a little bit bigger. It does root them for a long time, 175. It's notable it's a root, not a stun, so that means they can still auto attack you. But it looks pretty good. It looks pretty effective. It's on a 130-second cooldown. This could be useful, especially in team fights. So that will be good. So I think overall with her, you're just going to go your standard kind of enchanter kit, right? You're going to want to go Ardent Sensor with Airy, because then that way when you jump around to different people with you and me, it will give them the shield from Airy, and that will give them the Ardent Sensor buff. So the fact that you can just constantly jump around and keep giving people shields in team fights, I think can be really good. Because remember, there's no cooldown on you jumping to other people. It's only when you jump off and then jump back on. So I could see that being really useful. So I think Ardent is definitely a no-brainer. Athene's is a little bit harder to justify. It can work, when you're hitting your prowling projectiles. I just don't think she's going to put out a lot of damage. This does not empower your damage. It just restores mana and gives you a shield. So that's really not doing that much damage for Athene's. This does literally no damage for Athene's. This does literally no damage. And this might do some, it's going to do some in team fights. So Athene's plus this would be all right. But like 2 of your abilities do literally no damage to benefit Athene's, and your passive does no damage. So, and this is on a fairly long cooldown for team fights. So I think Athene's might be a little weak. Redemption will probably still be pretty good. I believe you can still use that and activate that when you are when you're attached to somebody. I'm not 100%. It won't heal you if you're still attached but you can pop off and then pop back on. So I think that Ardent plus Athene's, Mikhail's can be really good. She'll probably go for Mikhail's instead of Athene's, I would guess, just because I believe you can still activate and cleanse other people while you're attached. Let me see. I didn't look to see if any pros have used her yet in solo queue. There's not going to be a ton of data here. Okay, she's not on there yet. So, yeah, those are my initial thoughts. I don't want to do that too much more than that. I don't want to spend the whole patch notes doing that. But it's a fairly light patch, so I figured I'd talk a little bit about this. But I think she has potential. There's probably some things that I'm definitely overlooking here. I know that Jolty mentioned you could potentially, tower dive with her early, in a sense, where you damage somebody with your Q while you're attached, and the tower will start targeting you. And if no one else touches you, then, you just get executed. So that's okay. The problem with that is she already has really low base health and armor. And so it's yeah, you can take 1 extra tower shot and die. But there are other champions that can also tower dive really well early on without dying, right? Like Aftershock champs like Alistar or, Leona and things like that. They can dive really early with their defensive steroids anyways. And they're going to take a lot more shots than Yuumi. Even though Yuumi, you get executed for it, she's still only going to be able to take, 3 tower shots maybe early on before she dies. Whereas something like Alistar, Leona, Nautilus, with Aftershock, a lot of these champs are going to be able to take 5 or 6 tower shots, probably, around level 6 or so before they die. So it's a cute interaction, how you can try to get that execute with tower shots to buy your team some more time. I'm just not sure that's going to be enough to make her really viable. And I don't think that you want to go tank Yuumi. Some people said, well, what if you go tank Yuumi and start soaking all these tower shots? You don't want to go tank oftentimes. First of all, she has no way to reliably trigger Aftershock outside of her ult. So you can't really abuse that system by being squishy and running Aftershock, something like that Lux or Fiddlesticks would do. And she's just going to be attached mostly. You're not going to be getting hit most of the time, so you don't need to build tank stuff on her. So I don't know. She's okay. Her AP ratios aren't that great overall. Part of that is because you are going to be getting some AP things. So I think they're going to have to buff her. I think they're going to have to lower this cooldown, lower this mana cost, or add in that effect that I talked about where you land autos or you're doing something active and it lowers the cooldown on zoomies. Maybe they increase the heal. This needs to be buffed in some way. And this needs to be buffed too, especially in the early levels. Or give you something, give you a reason to put points into this. Maybe as you put more points in, that changes the cooldown on when you jump off and when you jump on. Maybe they could add something whenever you jump off, then you get an empowered auto attack. Or something like that, right? So it's encouraging you to jump off. Maybe your auto attack does an additional 20% of your AP damage or something like that. Maybe your auto attack gets extra range and gets extra, an ability power ratio or something. That would be pretty cool, right? Maybe it's only every so often, so you could pair it up with your bop and block. So you pop off, you have this empowered range auto attack to get your bop and block, and then you pop back on. So I don't know. She needs help, though. I think she needs help. She might be viable. I just think you're just going to get bulldozed by poke lanes. I think you're going to get bulldozed by all-in engage lanes. She has virtually no CC. Her scaling is low. She doesn't synergize with a lot of great items right now, like Athene's. It's okay. So it's she has some potential for sure, but I think that other enchanters are just going to outshine her right now. And, I really like her. She's cute. Obviously, I love cats. If you've watched the stream, cats are fantastic. I love my cat. I like cats in general. It looks like a really cool support. I think they will buff her to help her out eventually. But I think coming out the gate, if I had to guess, I'd predict maybe a 47% win rate, 48% win rate. Now, part of that's going to be because people aren't playing her correctly, but part of it is just the raw numbers are too low. I think they're playing it on the safe side because she has this really unique mechanic where she's basically untargetable most of the game. And so they want to be very careful and make sure that she's not too overpowered because there's very little counterplay to her being invulnerable. So they want to make sure that while you're invulnerable, you can't really do that much aside from chuck Qs, and that your other stuff's going to be pretty weak. So I get it. Cool idea. I think they'll work on it. But I think that right out the gate, I think she's going to be fairly weak. But I will try to play her in at least one game if I get the opportunity over the next couple of days. Okay, so let's talk about the other people here. All right, so Brands, it's okay. I don't think this is going to change his position that much. You always max your W first, and you have a choice to max Q or E. E does give you better wave clear. Q has longer range on it. The big problem with E is it's really, really short range. I think it's 600 range. So you have to get very, very close to try to land your full combo on people, and that's a big problem as a mage in the modern era. You're just opening yourself up to too much counterplay. And it's not even any extra damage early. You have to max this out. So at the earliest, you're going to be seeing significant benefits off of this around level 13 or so. I still think he's not going to be that great mid lane. He's just too vulnerable to ganks. He's too combo reliant. And as far as that was mid lane, and then bot lane, I just think that Zyra, Lux, even things like Xerath are probably just going to be way better than him at doing what he wants to do. Zyra specifically, historically, I've always liked way more. She has huge AoE teamfight. She has better scouting with her plant. She has better, more consistent poke with her plant. She has better access to all ends because she can use all of her abilities through the minion wave, whereas he has to have open field. So Brand is good. You know, his cooldowns are lower. That's a big thing on Zyra. He has more uptime on his threat. It's just harder to land it over time, and he uses a lot more mana. So he's okay. He obviously has a pretty good win rate, especially at like silver minus. He's going to be pretty good. I just don't think this is going to move the needle on him much. He does have 51% overall win rate. It is going to be a little bit higher than Zyra for sure, I think. Or no, just kidding. Zyra's higher at Platinum, but I think at lower ELOs he might be slightly higher. They're usually very similar. Zyra's just a bit harder to play. You got to learn how to use her plants properly and all that. I don't think this is going to change him that much. I mean, maybe he goes up 0.5% max or something win rate, but I would still rather play Zyra or Lux in most situations. He's so skill shot dependent. He needs mana, and he has very limited scaling without snowball potential. He doesn't offer much else. At least Zyra has an AoE, knock up for team fights, so that's really good. Later on in the game in team fights, she can at least do that, even if she's pretty far behind. Okay, Caitlyn is an interesting case. I think that she has had the potential to be very oppressive for a while now. She's just really, really hard to play. She's one of the hardest AD carries to play. I don't know why that is. Actually, I do. It doesn't make sense that people can't play her right, but for some reason people can't. A lot of it is people just do not play her the right way. She's not Sivir. You do not sit there and just AFK wave clear the whole time. She can do that. And she's also not Jinx. You're not supposed to just sit there and farm up and hope to scale for later on. She requires a lot of early game aggression to use her correctly. You have to be using that 650 range. You have to auto-attack the enemy often while you're still CSing, while you're still dodging their skill shots, while you're hitting your skill shots, while you're watching the minimap. I mean, she's designed for really high-level AD carry play. If you're just going to sit there and AFK farm because you're not sure when you should take trades, or you can't track the enemy jungler correctly, so you play really conservatively, it's fine. Just play Jinx or play Twitch or something like that actually scales really well off of 1 and 2 items. That's not who Caitlyn is. You also need to have really good trap placement. Like, the traps are a huge part of why you play Caitlyn. It gives you tremendous zone control, so that you can prevent the enemy from engaging on you if you have your traps correctly. You can put tremendous pressure on them under the tower so they can't CS correctly, so that you get lots of incremental advantages. So when you go for your first back, you're going to be up 15 CS, right? Like, that's what Caitlyn has to do. She has to slowly get advantages by chipping away at people with her auto attacks on them, by using those traps to make it difficult for them to CS, especially under tower, making it difficult for that Leona or that, Thresh or Rakan or whatever to engage on you, because you're always going to have a trap in front of you. So that's a huge thing about Caitlyn, is that she has the potential to be very oppressive. She can push, she can poke. Those traps do a hell of a lot of damage if someone steps on them. But there are so many Caitlyn's that don't even set down a trap. Even Diamond Caitlyn's that I've been playing with lately, like D4 Caitlyn's, P1 Caitlyn's, you know, they just do not use their traps efficiently. Many of them do not. Like, not even setting them down. So, anyways, I think she has the potential. And I think that the build that I had mentioned several patches ago that I really love, that never really caught on, I think can be pretty good right now. I'll talk about it in my 80 carry tier list coming up. I do think that Trap Max Caitlyn can be very strong as opposed to Q Max. A lot of people max Q, but they don't even use that Q to poke or harass a lot early on. And I think that traps are a much better use. Because they put out even more damage if people are stepping on the traps, and it gives you even more zone control and more power in team fights in the mid to late game as well. So it's a lot of damage. So this really supports going Trap Max Caitlyn first. 60 extra damage early on is big. I also think that going something like Essence Reaver Rapid Fire Infinity Edge is really strong. I've talked about this in the past with Caitlyn as well. Essence Reaver is also getting a buff on this patch. We'll talk about that later. But that's going to allow you to set down even more traps, spam your Qs, wave clear. I do think you should max Q second. You could even, I guess you could do like maybe 3 points. I don't know. I still think that Trap Max is probably going to be the best. You know, just watch the 80 carry tier list this patch and I'll explain it a bit more. But I do think that build will be really good. I think people try to play her as an auto attack based champion, which does work with her headshot mechanic, but really her AD ratios on her traps and on her Q and her headshot, or her ultimate rather, and on her headshot, her passive, all of those ratios are really, really big for an AD carry. She has ratios almost like an AD assassin. So I think that having a lot of very heavy AD is a good build on her. So building her with something like that Essence Reaver Rapid Fire Infinity Edge, which is becoming more popular, and this is something that I've been recommending for a while on champions that are primarily ability-based champions. Right, so we're thinking of champions like Xayah, right, where people have started doing that on Xayah now. Instead of going double zeal, they're going ER, either Phantom Dancer, Rapid Fire, and then IE. You know, champions like Draven. This has been popular for a while, but watching Draven going for 2 big 80 items first, right? Usually goes Bloodthirster and then Infinity Edge, or Bloodthirster, Rapid Fire, Infinity Edge. Even things like Sivir, which I've also recommended for a while, Essence Reaver, Phantom Dancer, or Static Shiv, and then Infinity Edge. I think on a lot of champions that have abilities that do a lot of damage and have an AD ratio on it, you need to be going double big 80 item. And so I think that this is something that could become popular on Caitlyn, and you can also do Klepto Caitlyn if you're maxing your traps. She has really long auto attack range, it's very easy to get those Klepto procs, and it's really cheap to use these Ws, and that does trigger Klepto. So you can just set down a W, go for 2 auto attacks, and you're protected as well. So the Klepto might be stretching it a little bit. I still think it's pretty good. You could do something like a press the attack Caitlyn if you want. I don't know about that. I'm not so sure that's great. Fleet footwork Caitlyn's pretty good if you're going to go rapid fire second. So maybe you still go fleet on Caitlyn, but I do think that Klepto is interesting. But at the very least, I think that, you know, going some combination of Trap Max and then potentially Essence Reaver second, you can still go Infinity Edge if you want. But Essence Reaver is going to be more palatable right now. It's going to give you more CDR, so you can lay down more traps, throw more Qs. And it's going to give you a lot more mana regen as well, so you can just keep turbo pushing, kind of like Sivir, with better zone control. But anyways, so this could be okay. It could be decent on Caitlyn. She doesn't have the worst win rate in the world right now, although it's certainly not the best either, but a lot of that's because people are just bad on Caitlyn. So I think if you practice her, she can be good. You just need to be very careful because when Caitlyn is good, often pros pick her up and she does get nerfed. So that's one potential downside to her. Okay, but that could be significant. We'll see, in conjunction with the Essence Reaver nerf and the Guinsoo, or the Essence Reaver buff and the Guinsoo nerf, which is going to knock a couple of top-tier champions like Vayne out of the meta a little bit, I think. At least percentage-wise. People still pick Vayne because she's cool, and people like Vampire Hunters, but as far as like win rates go, Vayne's going to go down a couple of percentage points on this patch. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Okay, so Graves, really oppressive when he's ahead. I mean, Graves was meta and dominant for probably like 10 patches in a row or something last season. Maybe it wasn't that long, but it certainly felt like a very long time that he was really good. He offers very little team utility, though, so if he falls behind, all he's got is his smoke screen, which is okay. But he doesn't have a ton of CC. Doesn't have a lot of other utility. So I think that someone like Kindred is just a stronger version of Graves right now. She's your kind of scaling AD auto attack champion for late game. But she has more utility. She's got her ult, which is really good against all-in comps that have like AoE. So like your Kennen, your Amumu, that type of stuff. Kindred cancels a lot of that out. And, you know, she has slows with her wolf. She has a lot of damage. You know, she's ranged. She just has a lot of stuff going for her. And I think she's just a better version of Graves right now. But maybe this brings Graves back in. He is pretty, I mean, that's a significant buff. 20 extra damage to end of the line later on. It's going to be pretty significant. So we'll see. I think he'll go up a little bit. Maybe 1 percentage point. I'm not sure where he is right now overall. Probably not that great. I think he's sub 50. Yeah, he's at 49, so this might bump him up to 50, maybe 51. So he'll be all right. He'll be all right, but I still think that some of those nerfs to him in the past, particularly the fact that he takes a ton of magic damage, is going to be rough on him right now. Okay, Master Yi. I don't understand why they're buffing this champion. It's so obnoxious. They're saying it's a nerf. It kind of is, but the problem is this Alpha Strike is going to make him extremely good at dueling, particularly early on in the game. So that's really when he's weak. He's supposed to be weak early. Like if someone like a Lee Sin or a Kha'Zix or something tries to come up and fight him early, he's supposed to lose. So he's supposed to have to sneak around and just farm to level 6. And it's supposed to be risky because if he just farms to 6, you know, then the game might be over, right? Maybe the other enemy jungler has already ganked 2 or 3 times and gotten kills in the lanes, and then Yi's not going to be able to catch back up. So that's been one of the ways to counter Yi is he's weak early. Well, now he's not. Not as weak. I doubt he's going to be able to fully duel something like a Kha'Zix or a Lee Sin early on, but maybe. I mean, if he uses his alpha to dodge the Lee Q, he might be able to beat him. So what this is doing is it no longer has a cast time, so it's going to have a more crisp animation, and they did that with a lot of his things. So I don't know, quality of life-wise, probably won't matter that much if you're a Master Yi expert. It's probably going to be pretty useful. But he can do up to 175% of Alpha Strike's damage now if there's an isolated single target. So in jungle fights or in lane fights where there aren't minions around or during tower dives and things like that, where there aren't enemy minions around, then he's going to do a ton of extra damage, up to 175% damage. There's a lot. So that's going to give him a ton of extra burst damage, some maximum single target damage. 288 with 175% ratio. That's disgusting. So before, it used to only be 165 with a 100% ratio, and it just wasted those extra alpha strikes. Now, if there are other people around, this is not going to matter as much, but it still will matter some. If there are 3 people around, he's still going to get an extra, you know, decent chunk of damage on the primary target. So in a lot of situations, unless there's at least 4 people in the fight, he's doing extra damage that would otherwise have been wasted. So it's going to make him a lot better in duels. I mean, even early on, 175%. This is total AD. This is not bonus AD. This is total. So when you're walking into this jungle with the total AD ratio this high and you're fighting something, you know, like Lee Sin, even if you only have like 80 AD early on, this is still going to be like 160-something damage early on, right? Because 175% of 80 is going to be, I don't know the number off the top of my head, probably like 140. And then you're getting this bonus right here. That's 180. What? 180 damage? Level 1? 180 damage, level 1. Off of a point-click press Q ability that also dodges stuff. So it can dodge, you know, Elise in Q. It can dodge an Elise Cocoon. It can dodge all kinds of things, right, that they're trying to do. So that's disgusting. That's way too high. So I think he's going to be extremely good at dueling. If you go in there and counter jungle somebody, if they're not near a jungle camp, or they just cleared the camp or something like that, I think you're just going to go in there and massacre people. Like this, the ratio is just so massive on him. So I think that's disgusting. It's so much damage, and he's also going to do this extra damage to things like Dragon and Blue buff. So it's going to help his clear against some of the big monsters like Blue, Gromp, Dragon, Scuttle. All of these things he's going to do way faster because they're going to be isolated. Maximum monster damage up to 600 with 175% ratio. So it's going to help his clear. It's going to help his Dragon threat, Scuttle threat, dueling power. Everything is going to be way, way stronger with this build. And, this might be enough. We'll see. I think there might be some builds where you go Warrior now on him because of this, because his ratio is so huge. Like, you might just go Warrior and just go bully people now on Yi. Like, there have been in the past crit builds with Master Yi. And so if you go something, I have a friend who plays Master Yi a lot that y'all may have seen on the channel. And I've seen him go crit, even in the on-hit meta where it's really good. I've seen him get crit, and I've seen it be effective. So you could even go something like, Warrior into Infinity Edge or something, early on, and you could add in, like, Phantom Dancer or something on top of that, and that'd be a lot of damage. Or even just, like, a heavy AD build. You could go something like Warrior into Spear of Sojin, or Warrior into Ghostblade into Spear of Sojin. Something like that could be really popular. So people might just go away from the on-hit build altogether. You could probably still go on-hit and still be pretty strong with this. So there's going to be a lot of options, but I think that on-hit definitely looks good. And don't forget, like, the Alpha Strike itself can critically strike. Each enemy struck has a critical strike chance to take 60% bonus physical damage from the primary target. And whatever from the lesser ones. So if you have an Infinity Edge, each one of these hits, the first hit, can critically strike, and they can take up to 75% extra damage. So, this initial hit, the 175% AD, can also crit to do even more off of that. And each one of the secondaries does 15% extra damage. So I don't know if the total thing crits or not. So let's see. So if the total thing crits, I don't know if it's one crit check. I think it's one crit check for all hits. So if you get an isolated target and you crit with this, that's 60% extra damage, plus it will hit up to 3 extra times here. So that's 105% damage, plus an additional 15%, 3 there. So that's like 12%. So that's 27 plus 105. It's like 133, 135% extra damage. So not only, when you get this maxed out, is it going to do, 290 damage with 175% bonus AD ratio. So if you have a 100 AD, it's going to do, let's just call it 450 damage. You can also do an extra 130% off of that. So you're talking like 900 damage, almost 1,000 damage, something like that, off of an Alpha Strike with just 100 AD. So you just have 100 total AD, not even bonus AD, total, including your base AD. You get a crit off of this with an Infinity Edge, which, spoiler alert, if you bought an Infinity Edge, you're probably going to have closer to 200 AD, which means you're going to be doing somewhere in the neighborhood of like 1,500 to 2,000 damage off of this, off of like 2 items. So if you go like Warrior, Infinity Edge with this build, and you crit somebody off of that, they're dead. It's like almost literally, if they're isolated, it's one shot. They're dead. Because this whole thing can crit that has a 175% ratio. That checks first. So, if you have 200 AD, that's going to be like, I can't do the math off the top. It's going to be like 350% or 350 damage, maybe more than that, plus this. It's just a hell of a lot. It's going to be like, against Squishy's, like literally one-shot territory off of Warrior Infinity Edge if you get a crit on that Alpha Strike. And your second shot or your second hit here, whenever you're doing double strike, guess what? That can crit as well. So it's going to be doing an extra 50% and, has this over here. So it's not the full crit damage, but it's a hell of a lot of extra crit on all of this stuff. So I think I think he's probably just going to build crit. I think he's just going to go Warrior, Infinity Edge, Phantom Dancer, or something like that, and then he's just going to run around one-shot fools, pretty much. And he could even go Essence Reaver. That sounds goofy, but maybe he could even go Essence Reaver off of this. You know, Warrior plus Infinity Edge plus Essence Reaver. I mean, that'll lower the cooldown on his ult. That'll lower the cooldown on all of his abilities. Mana's not really a problem, but the issue is you get a lot of AD, which he has a huge AD ratio, and you get a lot of crit on the same ability. You know, the stealing the mana is incidental. The 20% CDR is very relevant, though. You know, if you go something like Warrior, you could even go like Warrior, Essence Reaver, Spear of Sojin. That'd give you 40% CDR on all of your abilities. And you'd have a little bit of, I don't know if you'd, that's not enough crit, though. Maybe you could just go IE and then Essence Reaver. I don't know. There will be something that's broken. There will be a build out of this, and it's probably, I would guess, going to involve going Warrior Infinity Edge. That's my prediction on this patch. And I think he's going to be just as strong, if not even stronger, after this. I think he legit might go up 2% from where he is now, and he's already really high. He's already, like, here. So I honestly think he could approach 55% off of this. Now, I could be wrong about that, but I think this is extremely strong on him. Now, the downside here is his Highlander is much slower. So it's not of your total movement speed now. It's only your bonus movement speed. So it's only like off of your boots and stuff like that. So you're not getting that much speed. But the thing is, usually you don't have a problem sticking with them. They still can't slow you, and they still can't cripple you. And if this does end up being a problem, he can go Ghostblade early. Like, I know I was talking about all the power of, you know, this thing, and it can crit this, and it can crit that. The thing is, it does really high base damage. You don't even have to crit. Remember, you're doing like 900 to 1,000 damage anyways. So lethality is going to be very strong on him overall. And so if you need that Ghostblade to help you close the gap whenever you ult, that's fine. He can do that. Not a problem. So if it is an issue, he can go for that. I still think even with Berserker Boots, he's going to run most people down. Even if this had no bonus movement speed on it, which is kind of close to what this is going to be, he still is going to be able to run most people down. He has really high base movement speed. It's like 350, 355, you know, with Berserker Boots. You know, it's going to be well north of 400. So he's running down most champions with this realistically. And, you know, once again, if it's a problem, he can always, you know, rune to get some different stuff. He could go Nimbus Cloak. That'd be kind of goofy, but that would give him some movement speed whenever he ults. He could take Ghost. He could get Ghost Blade. Like, there's so many different ways he can sort of modify to get extra movement speed if he even needs it, which, once again, he's got a Gap Closer with Alpha Strike that comes off a cooldown very rapidly when he's in combat, so he's Alpha Striking a lot anyways. I think it's just going to be a huge nerf. Now, yes, they are nerfing Guinsoo, so the on-hit build is getting nerfed, but he doesn't have to go the on-hit build. Remember, like I just talked about, the crit build has been viable for a long time. Like this diamond-level Yi player that I've seen gets crit, you know, all the time. So that's the thing about Master Yi, and that's why I always recommend him as a one-trick champion for a lot of lower ELO brackets, like Platinum and lower, is because he's so versatile. He can go so many different things. He can be so many different things. He can be a power farmer. He can be a split pusher. He can be a team fighter. You know, he can take dragons easily by himself. He can take Baron even by himself with certain builds. You get a Wit's End, you can solo Baron. So, you know, he's just really hard to nerf out of the game. Like, yeah, they nerfed his on-hit build, whatever. Okay, now he can go, you know, some combination of lethality and crit. It might depend on the situation, but there's so many different items that can be so overpowered on him with his kit. And yeah, they did nerf his Wuju style. You know, it's no longer, you don't get 10% extra damage when it's not on cooldown. The thing is, it's going to be on cooldown most of the time. In fights, certainly. So maybe this hurts his jungle clear a little bit. Maybe. But for the most part, I don't think it's going to affect it. I think he's still going to be really, really strong. So watch out. Master Yi is going to be a lot stronger. Should definitely be a high priority on your ban list. Okay, Riven. I think this is a nerf to Riven. I know we've had some people on the channel saying it's a buff. I know there have been some people that are trying to be contrarian, some all-capsers, some YouTubers and things that have been saying, oh my god, it's a buff. No, it's not. Because, like, the thing that makes Riven so oppressive, a big part of it, people forget this, is that shield is really, really oppressive. Like, that is what makes her so strong, is that you can't trade against her when that shield is up, because it has such a ridiculous AD ratio on it. It's a shield with a high AD ratio. Like, all of her ratios are really big, but that just makes it so tough. If you watch a lot of Riven highlight videos, and there are a lot out there, just watch very carefully and see why she's strong. Okay? A big part of it is she will, most of the time, in almost all of these videos, she's going to run around near the end, and she's going to wait for this cooldown to come back up the E, and she's going to be at like 2 bars of health. The enemy's going to be at like, 80% health, and then she's like running away for a little bit. Then all of a sudden, she turns back around, Valor's back in, gets this insanely huge shield, and then kills him. Right? And it's like, oh my god, she had like, 5 HP, and she turned around and killed this person who had 1,000 HP left. Yeah, it's because of Valor. It's because of this shield. It has a 100% bonus AD ratio and scales up to do 215. So that's the thing. It's like, whenever this is up, you can go in for a trade as Riven, and you're basically giving yourself a free, 300 or 400 health every time you do this. So it just makes it very difficult to trade back on her. And so this is going to give her a bit more offense with the Q, which is nice. I mean, it's nice to have this up more often, which is good. So yeah, you can turn around on people, but this is not your stun. This is not your shield. This is just strictly your movement and your damage. So it will help offensive Riven if you're ahead and you're trying to snowball, you're trying to run people down. It's nice. Okay, you're going to get a little bit of a better cooldown here. So that's good. But this huge nerf on this shield is a big deal. So even if you max this out second, it's still going to be, whatever that is, 66% slower, right? It's going from 6 seconds to 10 seconds. That's a very, very big deal on Riven. So, maybe good Rivens can still play around this. Maybe they can use more of this offense. But I highly suspect she's going to take a bit of a hit here. So I'd say, 1 to 1.5% hit on the Riven. And tanks are going to be a bit stronger on this patch too. Conqueror's getting nerfed. Some of the tanks were buffed a few patches ago. She's not that great against tanks in general. So I expect her to go down a little bit. Okay, Soraka. So I don't like how untechnical this word is. Rapidly to significantly less rapidly. Tell me some damn numbers. When does it fall off? Because last time they said that the movement speed fell off, like it decayed. But it says she gets the movement speed for like 5 seconds or something. But really, she gets it for like half a second. And she loses like 99% of the speed. And she keeps like, 1 movement speed for 4 seconds or something. It's so troll. So I really wish they would not do these decay things, because it's really hard to quantify. It's really hard to understand exactly what's going on sort of mathematically behind some of these things. But it says decaying over, like this is all that it says here. Star Call decays over the duration. So she gains this for 5 seconds, decays over the duration. So when I was reading this in the last patch notes, I was like, damn, that's good. You get it like 14% movement speed at level 1 for 5 seconds. Yeah, it decays, but I was like, okay, maybe you get to keep most of it for 2 seconds. So maybe I'm thinking that it's falling off linearly, right? So like, okay, starts at 14, and then at 2.5 seconds, it's only 7, and then it slopes down to fall off all the way at 5 seconds. So I'm thinking that it falls off in this nice smooth curve, all the way down, so that you're getting roughly like half value for a lot. So it's like, okay, you get 30% to start with, but then at 2.5 seconds, you still have 15%. That's great. Not how it works at all. I don't know the exact number because they don't use precise language here. But I can tell you from experience, I played her a lot right when the patch released because I thought she was going to be really OP because this extra movement speed. She's still pretty good. She was not nearly as strong as I thought because this movement speed, basically, you don't get any bonus after like 1 second. It's like 0%. So you only get the maximum amount for like, a quarter of a second or something, and then it falls off like to where you get virtually nothing. And so that sucked. So now they're giving us more imprecise language. They're saying decays rapidly to significantly less rapidly. So what does this mean? What does significantly mean? Does this mean I actually get to keep the movement speed for like 2 seconds? I don't know. So I'm just going to have to play it and see. So if you do get to keep this movement speed for 2 seconds, this can actually be really good. If you get 3 points in lane and you're giving your AD carry an extra, 22% movement speed to escape ganks, if it's kind of like a Karma Shield or something like that, in terms of movement speed, that's pretty good. Karma Shield, or maybe maybe at least like a Nami E or something like that, or like a Nami's passive. That'd be pretty good if it gives you that little extra jolt of movement speed to help get you through, to help you chase people or, you know, kind of dodge stuff. That could be really good. Because she needs that. She needs the mobility. She needs to be able to get away from stuff. And so that was going to be one of the huge additions, is you can run so fast to get away from things after you hit the Q, and you can speed up your allies as well. So it's kind of like a little mini karma interaction in addition to lots of healing. So we'll see how it goes. It's tough for me to say because I don't know what this language means. But they are giving her higher base numbers. That doesn't matter. The base numbers are already fine. It's how fast is it going to decay. So once again, you know, it's hard for me to comment, but it's a buff. So it just depends on how much of a buff. So if it's good, I could see her going up 1.5%. She's already pretty high. I think she's somewhere close to the top. I thought. Yeah, she's like 51.3, so she's about the same as she was. She may have fallen off like 0.5% or something. And a lot of that, once again, is because of the imprecise language of that. It sounded like it was going to be a lot better than it actually was. But maybe they're fixing that this patch. We'll see. Okay, so AP Tryndamere. You're helping mobility. Okay, well, why are you nerfing the AP ratio? I guess they don't want AP Tryndamere to be a thing. I thought they nerfed that a while ago to where it wasn't that great, but whatever. They're giving him a little bit of extra movement speed. They just don't want him to buy Nashor's Tooth or like Essence Reaver. I guess particularly Nashor's Tooth. But whatever. I don't think it's going to matter that much. Maybe it does matter. Maybe he gets like 0.5% or something, but for one tricks, it's probably good. Okay, Vayne. Pretty big nerf to Vayne, so she's getting less cooldown reduction early on, which I would have said thank God 2 or 3 patches ago. I feel like Vayne's not even that good right now, honestly. Like this patch, almost every Vayne that I've seen just feeds like hard because they just get bullied so hard early on. You know, Jinx bullies early on. Draven definitely bullies early on. There's a lot of stuff that's just very difficult for her to match up with. It's near the top of the charts right now. Sivir is really pretty difficult for Vayne to deal with early on because she just has no wave clear. She just doesn't do anything. She just sits there and tries to last hit in lane, and you just get busted up by any kind of aggressive support. So you're just pretty much conceding the lane. You're just saying, I'm going to lose this lane. And the thing is, there are so many other champions that have a much better time in the lane that also scale really well into late game. Most notably, Jinx and then also Sivir have much better laning phases and scale similarly strong. And she's not that great in she's good in team fights if she's really fed, but she doesn't have like any sort of AoE damage that can just crush team fights. You know, like Sivir, Jinx, Twitch, all of these have really big AoE abilities that do a ton of damage in team fights, and she just doesn't have that. So that's a pretty big nerf to her. And then also the Guinsoo's build is going to be very, very difficult for her to replace because, like, historically the problem with Vayne is she has a pretty good power spike at single item. So when she gets Blade the Ruined King, it's pretty good at dueling at 1v1ing other champs. But historically she's fallen off hard on second item because there aren't very many items that synergize well with Blade the Ruined King early on. Guinsoo's does, though, historically. You know, over the last half a year or something, Guinsoo's does. And that works really well with her Silver Bolts. So it's like, okay, great. I have Blade the Ruined King that I can trigger multiple times. I have my passive that I can trigger multiple times. So she's been strong on 1 item and 2 items for like, 6 months or so now, right? But now that's changing. And this is going back to her more historical model where she's really good on 1 item at Blade the Ruined King, pretty strong. Then her second item kind of sucks because you have to start building towards crit. So she's probably going to go like Phantom Dancer. Phantom Dancer doesn't have any synergy with Blade the Ruined King. Blade has no crit on it. Blade has really low AD on it. So that's not going to help out your crits that you land with Phantom Dancer. And the shield is nice. The extra movement speed is nice. But you really don't come online again until you get your Infinity Edge. So once you get your Infinity Edge as third item, then you start to become pretty strong again. So now you got 50% critical strike, and you have the Blade of the Ruined King healing and all that stuff. So she's kind of going more towards a Caitlyn-esque type of model, which is Caitlyn's always been that way, where it's like really good on 1 item, when she gets her Infinity Edge, or maybe Essence Reaver these days. We'll see. Probably still Infinity Edge for most people. And then Rapid Fire is like, okay, but then she doesn't come back online again until she gets that third item, until she gets, you know, the other Zeal item or the Essence Reaver or whatever. And it's going to kind of be the same way as Vayne again, where it's like starts off strong, single item, dips down a lot, and then third item comes back up. The problem is a lot of games are going to end before you get to that third item. So they're going to be able to punish you tremendously in lane until you get that first item. You get the first item, you're going to be in an okay place, and then they're going to be able to punish you really hard while you're trying to get to your third item. So you're going to be extremely weak from like 0 to 15 minutes. Then you're going to be okay from like maybe 15 minutes to like 20, 22 minutes or so as you have your Blather and King before they finish their second item. And then once both AD carries finish their second items, you know, maybe 20 to 22 minutes, then she's going to be a lot weaker until you get your third item at like 30 minutes. So she's going to be weak from 0 to 15. She's going to be probably kind of competitive from like 15 to 22. And then she's going to be weak again until like 30 or 32. And then she'll be strong again after that. So she's got this really weird kind of like wavy power curve, I suspect, that's going to happen here. And I think it's just going to be too challenging for a lot of people to calibrate that and play her appropriately in different situations. So I think she's going to fall a lot. I think, you know, I'd say at least 2% on this patch. I think she's going to fall at least 2%. But we'll see. She's already been trending down for a little bit. She still has an okay. It's like 52, which is nice for Vayne, you know, historically. It's like almost 53. So I don't know. I think she's going to be closer to, you know, 50 to 51% after this patch. I mean, they made some very minor nerfs to Lucian, and the power curve changed. Just look at Lucian as an example. Very oppressive, early game champion. What happened to him? Everyone started getting really strong on 2 items, and he's weak on 2 items. So he's good when you get your Blather and King, just like Vayne, but his second item kind of sucks in this meta right now because there aren't a lot of tanks out there. So Black Cleaver, just not as good in a crit meta because, you know, when your Jinx is going to have Infinity Edge plus Hurricane and you're sitting there on like Blather and King, Black Cleaver, she's just going to blow you up. Now, they did make some minor nerfs to Lucian, right? They nerfed his W. They nerfed a couple of other things. Now they're nerfing something that I would argue is even more major on the Vayne, which is her ult, which is, you know, her bread and butter early on. So, and remember, Lucian was like 53 or 54%. Now he's down at 48. So I don't know if it's going to be that rapid of a transformation for Vayne, but I'm seeing very similar patterns here. You know, I think that it's the same thing. She's going to have a weak level 2 or second item. Remember, Lucian starts to come back online again at 3 and 4 items, but it's too late. The game's over by then. So I think that that's going to be very, very similar power curve. So I expect her to lose at least 1.5 to 2%, although it could be much more precipitous like Lucian. She could go all the way under 50% on this patch. We'll see. But yeah, I already feel like she does not feel good in my games. Okay, Xin Zhao getting some light buffs. I don't think this is going to bring him back into the meta. I mean, it's possible, but I feel like there are other champions that can duel early that also scale a bit better later on into the game. So we'll see. You know, if you can completely take over early with Zen, he's probably going to be a bit better, but I don't think this is going to move the needle that much on him. I mean, it is nice. It is nice early on if you get some successful ganks off. But like they're saying, because the Scuttle, like people don't have to fight around Scuttle as much early, if you really fail on an early gank, you're probably going to fall off pretty hard. Sadie. She's like standing on this chair, right, looking to be fed. All right. Zyra. Decent quality of life on Zyra, I guess. Certain matchups, like against Misfortune or Corki. People ask me on stream, what does this mean? There are some abilities that champions have that do like extra, that do extra damage that's counting as an extra hit. So like Misfortune's Love Tap is probably the most famous one. That should just do 1 instance of damage, just empowered damage, but for some reason it counts as 2 sources of damage. So you have the auto attack and then you have the passive. The Love Taps count as 2. So that basically means it one-shots the range, or one-shots the plants whenever you auto attack with Misfortune. So they're changing that. Anything that does like extra on-hit damage is only counting as 1 instance of damage now. So it makes her plants a little bit more resilient, but Zyra's still going to be pretty decent in all ELO brackets. I think that Lux is a bit better. I'm going to talk about that in the support tier list video, so stay tuned for that. I don't want this video to be too long. But she's okay. If you're good on Zyra, she's pretty good in this meta right now. You just have to take over early. Essence Reaver, this is a pretty big buff. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot, but I think it's fairly significant. It's an extra 175 gold value, which is really nice. And there are already champions that really want this item. You know, like Sivir, this is a huge buff to Sivir because it's nerfing out some of her competition with the Guinsoo users. So most notably Vayne, it's nerfing out. And I said that Sivir already had a pretty good matchup against Vayne early. And this is going to make it much, much better because Vayne is getting directly nerfed on her ult. Vayne is getting the Guinsoo's nerf, and Sivir's getting buffed with Essence Reaver. So Essence Reaver is very, very good on Sivir to begin with. She really wants the CDR. She really desperately needs that mana so she can keep wave clearing. That is someone where the mana is very, very relevant. And she wants heavy critical strike and AD. So I think she's going to be a lot better. I think that Xayah is going to be stronger off of this as well. People are starting to realize the double AD Xayah build where you go for Essence Reaver, Rapid Fire, either Rapid Fire or Phantom Dancer, and then Infinity Edge. I've been calling for this for like 4 or 5 patches or something. I've said it's a pretty good build. People are trying it out. They're moving away from the double Zeal items, which I think are terrible on her. So if people start playing that, it'll be good. I think Rakan, I'm not sure if his win rate went up this patch or not. He definitely felt a little bit better to me than he had in the past. Yeah, his win rate's gone up pretty significantly, actually. He's up about 2.5 or 3%. You know, as I said, he probably would be. I thought that was going to be a buff last patch. People were like, oh my god, that's the death of Rakan with the R. It's like, not really. They gave him a much better laning phase, and he did feel pretty good the few times that I played him. Been playing a lot more Lux lately, if you've noticed the stream, and I'll talk about that on my support tier list. But I do think that he is definitely better than he was. And whenever he's better, then Xayah's better. This Essence Reaver buff is going to be really good for Xayah. And the nerf to things like Guinsoo's is going to be an indirect buff to her as well. So that could be good. And then Ashe. Ashe does have a high win rate. I'm not a big fan of Ashe in general. But she's kind of like Caitlyn. If you use all of her skills correctly, she's very good. If you track the jungler with your hawk shot, if you're actually poking with your long range, your I think she has 625 auto attack range. If you're using that auto attack range or using your W to land some significant poke early on, then she can be good. But she's going to scale a lot worse than most other AD carries unless she gets really far ahead. So kind of like Caitlyn in that respect too. So you really, really have to be on your game. You have to be aggressive early. You can't just sit there and farm. So those champions are all going to get a bit better with this. Now, other champions might be able to adjust their build potentially to include Essence Reaver. I think that Kai'Sa is going to be one of the primary ones. We'll talk about this with the AD carry video. I think a lot of people really overvalue the invisibility of the E upgrade. Now, I'll have to check. Let me just look here real quick. I think what do you have to have? 100 attack speed? I know I don't want this video to be too long, and I'll talk about this more in the AD carry video. But I think it's 100, but I don't know if it scales down. Yeah, based on level. So you need 100% to 70%. So if you get it second item around level 9, so you need like 90% at level 8. Okay, so if you go Essence Reaver now, it's going to give you 70 AD, which should be enough. Is that enough to trigger this around like level 6? You're going to have 70 bonus attack damage off of this. You have a Doran's Blade, which will give you 8, so that's 78. And then there's probably some combination of runes you can take to get like 10. So that'll give you 88 by the time you complete this. You know, maybe at level 7. I think there's something you can do to get this. You might have to get a longsword somewhere in there that you just kind of save for later. I'm not really sure. I'd have to do the exact math on all of the runes, and I'll have that for the AD carry video for you. But I suspect with this buff to Essence Reaver, moving it up to 70 base AD, that you might be able to just go Essence Reaver early for the 70, and then with the rest of your runes, you could get your evolve pretty quickly thereafter with Doran's Blade. You might have to get an extra Doran's Blade or an extra Longsword to make the math properly work. But I think it's possible. I think it's possible to get your Essence Reaver and get this evolved quickly. Because, like, before, what she's been doing is Storm Razor into Guinsoo's. I don't think Guinsoo's is going to be that great anymore on her. We'll see. And Storm Razor sucks anyways compared to a lot of other early items, like Infinity Edge is better, Blade and King better. Storm Razor just kind of sucks. You're just getting that so you can get your double evolve off of Guinsoo's. But what if you could go Essence Reaver first, and then you go for Hurricane, which I believe gives 35 AD early. Spear of Sojin might be interesting on her too, but I don't think so. I think that's pushing the envelope a little bit. Spear of Sojin is such a cool item on so many champions, but probably costs a little bit too much. And you don't want to be using your ult proactively. You want to be using it reactively. So yeah, probably no Spear of Sojin. You could also just straight rush Infinity Edge. I've talked about this before in the past. That's what I was recommending on her instead of that Storm Razor build. I think maybe you could go Essence Reaver. The reason that I like Essence Reaver is that would give you a ton of extra wave clear. You could just spam your Q in the lane. You could use your W for more pokes. You'd have more CDR so that you could get more ults in there and things like that. I mean, maybe she just goes straight Infinity Edge into Hurricane into Essence Reaver just like everybody else these days. But she could maybe start off with Essence Reaver. You could certainly do Infinity Edge first and get your first evolve off of that. And then I think, okay, 40% attack speed, and then Berserker Greaves, I think, or something. Isn't it like 35? I think it's 35 offhand. So I'd give you 75% attack speed, and then off of your runes, if you go into Alacrity, you can probably get at least 10, which would give you like 85%. And then you might need a little bit more in there somewhere. So the math is really close. It's really sketchy. It's really close. But I think with Infinity Edge, you could definitely get the evolve off of your Q at level, like off first item. And then I think Runins plus Berserker Greaves could give you the evolve next. It's like if you rune correctly. It's possible you might have to get another dagger in there. I'm not sure. But I do think that like Essence Reaver is certainly more interesting now. So maybe it's just IE Hurricane Essence Reaver. Maybe it's Essence Reaver Hurricane IE. I'm not really sure, but I think she'll be able to find a build that'll be okay. Caitlyn already talked about potential Essence Reaver on her. Varus is another person who could potentially go Essence Reaver. You know, crit is not insanely good on him historically just because like his abilities don't scale with crit, but he does like a lot of AD. Essence Reaver does offer that. He does like the CDR. Essence Reaver does offer that. He likes Hurricane. So maybe it'll be a similar thing. Essence Reaver, Hurricane, Infinity Edge could be pretty good on Varus as well, potentially. So I think that these champions can find like alternate builds most likely. But any other Guinsoo user, I think Kog'Maw is going to have a hard time compensating. Vayne's going to have a hard time compensating. So we'll see. Guinsoo's, finally, then we're going to wrap this up. It's a questionable nerf. I mean, there was a time when I would have said this was really OP, back when Kai'Sa was like completely running the show. Vayne was taking over everything. But these champions aren't that oppressive right now. Like, Vayne is already trending down. Like I said, just anecdotally, she feels bad in my games. I don't like having Vayne on my team at all. I'm not as scared of Vayne on the enemy team as I am of things like Jinx. Yeah, she can go off. But I'm much more scared of things like Draven and Jinx on the enemy team than I am of Vayne. Even Sivir is like, ugh, I'd really rather face Vayne. So she's already trending down. Kai'Sa's been way down. Kai'Sa's really popular, but she's been around 50%, somewhere between 48 to 50% for a long time now. I know she gets played a lot in pro, but she's got a lot of problems early on. Like Storm Razor sucks as a first item. So there's a lot of issues there. But anyways, so I don't think it was necessary. Yeah, Master Yi was a huge problem, but they buffed the hell out of Master Yi with crit, so this doesn't even solve Master Yi. So who are you trying to nerf? Like with this build, you trying to nerf Varus? The old 49% win rate Varus here? Kog'Maw's been trending up. Okay, I'll give him that. Kog'Maw's at 53%. Why not just nerf Kog'Maw if you're scared of that? But he's got a low play rate. It's only like a 1.6% play rate. You know, and there are other champions that have higher win rates with much higher play rates. Jinx, 16% play rate, almost a 55% win rate. So I don't understand. Like, Kayle has been, she's fallen down a lot. A lot of people don't even go Guinsoo's on Kayle right now. So, like, which champions are they trying to fix with this? Because this is a massive nerf. Like, Jax doesn't even have to get this. He can get other items. I don't even think it's right to get this on Jax a lot of the time. I mean, who's the problem? Like, this is don't mistake it. This is an astronomical nerf to this item, okay? Instead of 2 hits, it's every 3 hits. People get this item specifically because of this. No one cares about this extra armor pin. You were already getting this per level anyway. So by the time you got this, you're going to have 10% armor pin and 10% magic pin anyway. So you're getting an extra maybe 5% in the mid game that you would have gotten anyways by the late game. So, it gives too much power to but none of these champions are like running the show. And the ones that are running the show have alternate builds that are similarly strong, like Jax and Yi. It's not going to affect them, I don't think, very much at all. You know, it's the main person, Kayle, you know, she can go that with some builds, but a lot of people have been going like this Trinity Force build on her lately. Really, it's just Kog'Maw and Vayne are the only 2 that I don't think have an alternate build. Is this going to hit? And those aren't that oppressive. You could argue maybe Kai'Sa, but like I said, I think Kai'Sa's going to be able to get away and have different builds. Varus doesn't have a high win rate, but I think he'll be able to probably come up with a different build too. So I think this is kind of lame because the on-hit builds are fun. Like, this is an entire like type of AD carry build that's cool. So it's an alternative to crit. Now it's just going to basically be all crit champs. Which is, I mean, that's okay, I guess, but I like metas where there's diversity, where you can have people, some people go crit, you know, some people go on-hit builds, some people just go very heavy, like, AD builds, you know, that are, like, ability-based. So, like, I guess even, like, the Xayah Sivir builds are crit. Maybe thinking of something like a Draven or a, I don't know, like Twitch. Like, some of these champions have unique builds that are kind of interesting, but now they're just trying to force everybody to go crit. So it's okay. I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. You know, the biggest person that's going to get hit off of this, I think, is Vayne. That's like popular and powerful. The rest of the champions are probably going to stay around their same win rate. Cog might fall a couple of percentage points, but he's not played very much anyways. Kai'Sa, I mean, she can't go much lower than she is at 50%. Her kit is just has too many good things in it. So it's going to make the top 3 AD carry stronger, though, and that's like the real issue there. Is these are going to be even more suffocating than they already are, right? Like, Jinx is going to go up, Sivir's going to go up, and Twitch is going to go up because of this. Even Ashe is going to go up because of this. I don't approve of Ashe, but some people play her. She has a high win rate. That's a fact. So all of these are going to get stronger, especially Sivir, because she benefits from Essence Reaver as well. So I don't know. You know, like I said, if this came about, you know, 4 or 5 patches ago, I'd be like, yes, nerf that. But I think the meta has already shifted away from these champs. So I think this is an ill thought nerf. Or if they didn't buff Yi so much with crit specifically, then maybe this would be appropriate. But why not just, if you want to do that, if Yi's a problem, just nerf Yi. Like, I think they should have just nerfed the individual champions that are a problem, because there are some builds with Guinsoo's that are cool, that are interesting, where the champion's not that much of a problem, right? Like, I don't think Vayne with this was too over the top, especially after the most recent nerf to her ult. You know, I think the Kog'Maw is interesting with it, so I don't know, but it is what it is. Runic Echo is probably not going to matter. There are some champions that'll really like this. So Karthus got some pretty big buffs. Last patch with Ulti Hunter, and now he's got Runic Echoes is a bit cheaper, so that's going to be very strong on him. I think he's still a pretty good jungler. I don't know his overall win rate. Let me just check here real quick. I don't think it's insane, though. 51%. So, you know, it's okay on Karthus. Shyvana, this is actually a nice buff for the AP Shyvana. There's been a lot of stuff that's changed about that that's helped her out a ton recently. So it's kind of slowing down the meta overall. Not having to fight over scuttles at level 2 is pretty good. But overall, I think she's been falling a little bit. She's still around 51%. So it'll be okay. Eve is another one. Obviously, this will help Eve. So these three are definitely helpful. They're in the meta. They're useful. They're over 50%. They're not insanely strong right now. They're okay. Talia has fallen out of the meta in the jungle, but I don't remember exactly why she fell out, but she's starting to come back a little bit. She's still 51.5%, so this will definitely help out Talia. You know, Hecarim has fallen down a little bit on this patch. I didn't think he'd fall that much, but he has fallen about 2% on this patch. I knew it'd be a little bit. You could go this on a Mumu. I mean, I guess, you know, Cinderhulk is most common, I believe, on a Mumu, but he does have okay AP ratios, so maybe, you know, maybe you can go Runic Echoes on a Mumu. I don't like a Mumu most of the time, but it's hard to argue with this. He's almost at 55% in Platinum with a high pick rate, so, I mean, the champion's winning games. So, I think he's really conditional in my games. Maybe I'm just biased. Totally possible. I just think he's very risky, but you know what? He's winning games right now, so it's definitely a build that could work on him. I wouldn't do it on Nunu. I think Nunu really wants to get Cinderhulk. Possible, I guess. So I don't think it's going to shake up the meta too much. It might help a Mumu with an AP build, which I actually, I kind of like the AP build better than the kind of your one-shot Amumu build, a lot better than the Cinderhulk build. But anyways, and then Gragas, perhaps. I think Gragas has kind of fallen out of the meta too, but he was another AP user that I thought maybe could do something. Like, he can either go Cinderhulk or Runic, but he's really far down. He's like 47%, so I don't think it's going to shake up the meta too much, but it might help out those champs a little bit. And then Conqueror, I think this is going to be a pretty good nerf. Conqueror has needed to be toned down a little bit. This might bring tanks back. People may not think this is much, like, oh, it's going from 10% to 8%. That's 20% less damage off a Conqueror, which is also a lot less healing. So a lot of these Conqueror champs, that is going to be a hit to Master Yi. But once again, if you're going like kind of this one-shot crit Yi with the Alpha Strike, isolated Alpha Strike, Conqueror's not going to matter anyways. And Yi can just go press the attack if he needs to. Like, it's not like that's going to be a significant drop-off. So a lot of the Conqueror champs can go PTA, also press the attack, like Jax. So, some champs can do that. There are other ones where that won't work as easily. Like, I think Urgot, Riven. There are a lot of Conqueror champs that don't want to have to go press the attack. Maybe Yasuo. So, it'll be okay. I think this is going to empower some tanks. So, like your Nunu, your Rammus, your Amumu, your Sejuani. All of these are going to be a bit stronger in the jungle. And they're already getting pretty strong, right? You've got your Amumu, Rammus, and Nunu are 3 of the top 4 win rate champs. Right now, and Sejuani's not that far behind. Sejuani went up a lot, like I predicted she would. Not a lot of people were calling Sejuani. I was. But yeah, she's gone up quite a bit. So anything that's going to build tanky is going to like it when Cinderhulk falls off. Now, I don't think that a lot of tanks top lane are going to start coming back. I think this is mostly like relevant for jungle tanks. I think top is still mostly fighters that are going to be good. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, what are the pick rates here? Yeah, your Irelias, your Dariuses, your Renekton's. Yeah, all of these champs are not going to be really that tanky. Maybe Nasus. So, yeah, I don't think the tanks are magically going to come back top. Garen will probably like this, but I think it will help out jungle tanks. So, anyways, that's going to be it for this patch. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed this. Sorry, I did go a bit longer than I intended. I really wanted this to be shorter, but I also wanted to talk about Yuumi for a little bit as well, so it is what it is. Be sure to check out the tier list as well. We're going to have support tier list, AD carry tier list. I'll give you all the numbers and recommendations, particularly for AD carry, which I think might get shaken up a little bit on this patch. I'll have all of the explanations for why I think Lux support is really strong right now. I will do a separate video for Yuumi. I'll talk about Yuumi a bit more. I'll do some more research and talk about some potential builds and stuff on the support tier list, but then I'll do a whole separate guide for her after I get to play with and against her and as her a couple of games, hopefully over the next few days. But anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the rest of the content, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.